кровавий заводить, там пивцю рашистів ніяк не знаходить, хто винен, що в нашому полі глухар. Байрактар, Байрактар веде пропаганду кремлівський урод, слова пропаганди ковтає народ, тепер нове слово знає цар.
Байрактар.
Байрактар. Байрактар.
Байрактар.
Байрактар.
Yes.
The Leaf Spring Army sends its regards.
Русский военный корабль. Предлагаю сложить оружие и сдаться. Русский военный корабль, иди нахуй.
And we are back.
Let's go.
Let's go. And sorry about that, everyone. We don't know what happened, but the internet just straight up died on us. It just literally went and flatlined for about 5 seconds and then came back. So it threw us completely offline. Sorry about that, everyone. We would like to thank...
They just turned off the cameras.
We would like to thank Spectrum. They're the best. They're the greatest. But anyways, we're going to be getting right back to the video that we were at before we were so rudely interrupted in the northeastern area, where we saw the 26th Brigade, with their crab, was able to blow away some Russian armor in the area of Chernopopivka. And so, let's watch this pop off. So we can see the Fox, we can also see the Russian armor right there. It's an MTLB, and it's about to be an MT no B. And we can see some pieces flying away. We can see a smoke cloud coming from the artillery, and it appears that this MTLB is getting no respect around here. I'm telling you, it's absolutely no respect.
Oh, I get no respect now. I get no respect.
Oh, man, I'm telling you. I get no respect around here. I try and run a respectable show. Oh, man, and then my internet provider screws me over. Oh, man, I'm telling you. But when you see the...
Also, remember to hit the like again, by the way. We need to get those like numbers back up there.
Yeah, pump up those like numbers. We gotta pump those numbers up. But we can see right there, the BMP has been destroyed. They called it an MTLB, but that looks like a BMP, and it has been destroyed by the crab. It appears that it has gotten crabs. And so with that, that's the end of that little clip. Always love to see it. And we're now going to be moving on into our next bit of news. And this was the news that everyone was waiting for. And so, of course, real quick before we get into this, considering that everyone is either trying to find the stream or come back to it, make sure to hit the like button. That is probably going to be our best way to get this stream, the second one, out there to as many people as possible, so that way people who may be looking for this stream will find it. So make sure to hit the like button. We're already getting on up into the 700s. Hopefully you can get up into maybe 1,000 or so and just try and keep it going, because the more likes and the quicker they come in, hopefully it gets promoted to the folks that got kicked off the first stream and haven't found the second one yet. And so with that, we're now about to be moving on into Bakhmut. The massive news that everyone was anticipating, and we have right here. It's not been going well for the Russians, and I'll show you all the map on Deep State UA, but we have been able to confirm that this map is inaccurate. It's actually showing a too positive of a situation for the Russians, funnily enough. They haven't corrected it for what happened down here in the south today. Over the past 24 hours, they only show that the Russian forces have retreated from the southern area by a small amount, but Russian forces here in the center have been able to move forward a pretty decent amount of city blocks, and they've pretty much taken over, at least according to Deep State UA, the entirety of Bakhmut City, although that is also somewhat untrue, because we were still getting video footage stamped from today that showed that Ukrainian forces were still inside of the city, within the high-rises in that area, and were still fighting the Russians, so they have not given up this area. And they also, the Russians have completely lost this area. In case if anyone's like, well, you know, that sounds really optimistic. How in the world would you say that they have taken over this entire area? Why in the world would you say the Ukrainians have made it all the way to Klishchiivka, which is about 5 miles behind the Russian lines right now? Well, it's because of this. I'm just going to play the video and read off the translation, because this is about the best proof we have. So here we go. Regret those territories which Donavokna Wagner for months fought off the enemy, including in the area of Klishchiivka, which was lost today by the unit of the Ministry of Defense. This is the most profitable frontier. When you give the enemy huge territories filled with the blood of our comrades, it is called now not effed up, but took a more profitable frontier. And so you heard it from him. They've lost Klishchiivka, and while that's not being shown on Deep State UA, they've lost a town, and from what we can see, it's a complete rout down there. We saw the 72nd Brigade, and I'll show you all this clip, running off the field. Like, it's not even a contest down there anymore. The Ukrainians are winning outright. Here is some drone footage from the 24th Separate Assault Battalion, the IDAR, showing the Russians running off. So here's the clip. We can see dozens of them. It's a never-ending amount, just pouring past the burned-out Russian tanks, the few that remained, and they're running clean off the field. When you see a large amount of them continuing down the path, it appears that these guys are crawling for some reason. And we hear the Ukrainians making fun of them. And they're getting a laugh out of this whole thing. And with that, that's the end of the clip. But we can see the 72nd Brigade right there in the southern area, retreating out of the area of Klishchiivka and giving up the entire front. Who knows how deep this hole is in the Russian lines right now past Klishchiivka? And so it seems as though, at least for the moment, our frontline map, sorry, what happened? Our frontline map at the moment is a little bit more accurate than Deep State's, because Deep State is not adjusted yet for the Ukrainians taking Klishchiivka, which we've heard Prigozhin confirm that they have taken it. We have not seen that yet adjusted here, but we did hear it from Prigozhin's mouth, and we do have a lot of footage showing that the Ukrainians have once again been blowing away Russian forces in this area. They've been on a complete rout, and they are taking prisoners as well. And so starting off with our first clip, furthest north on the southern front, we saw that another Russian soldier ended up surrendering. And so here's the clip. You see the prisoner right here. We can see the white armband showing he's Russian. You see him moving him on along. Your artillery landing in the distance. And we can now see the cameraman walking away. And that's the end of the video. But once again, another Russian soldier taken prisoner. We can also see in another clip even more Russian surrenders to Ukrainian forces that were moving forward in this area. This was also a Wagner soldier, by the way. I'm your brother. You better sit down. Where are you from? I'm from Ulan-Ude. I live in St. Petersburg. How many days have you not been fed? Today is the 4th day. Why? Because we were pulled out of there. We were standing in the forest. We were eating something and then we were brought here. The guards showed us the positions and said they would bring food. I took it with me, but we were being shelled, so I threw my backpack away, and I ran to the position, or rather I ran to the position with a guide. There was no food with me. I found water in a hole, and I had some small cookies with me. I drank some water with it, and a few sweets. I drank the last water. No, I finished it this morning and I left it a little sip. According to the Geneva Conventions, you are guaranteed normal treatment. According to your choice, you will either go to exchange for our prisoners of war, or you will stay until the end of the war, and then you will be sent home. As you wish. Do you understand? I do. And so that's the end of the clip, and we can see something very interesting. This is even rare for the Ukrainians. These soldiers took the time to explain his rights under the Geneva Convention and what kind of choices he will have once he goes into processing. That is something that is exceptional even for the Ukrainians. We don't even see the Ukrainians listing off the rights of a prisoner almost within minutes of them being captured. And not only did we hear that, which was very interesting, we heard that the forces in the southern direction near Klishchiivka, at least as far as this one soldier story is concerned, may have been lacking food almost entirely. For 4 days, this guy had nothing to eat rather than a few sugar cookies and a bottle of water, which is showing that even in the food supply situation, which is actually, crazily enough, in the modern day, one of the easiest things to supply, they're having a very hard time supplying that as well. And so it appears that that may be the reason why the Southern Front is completely shattering, or more so disintegrating, is because these soldiers aren't even being provided with basic elements of survival like food or water or anything else like that. And so with that, we're going to be moving on into our next clip, where we also saw a firefight just outside of Klishchiivka, probably around a mile or so away. I don't know, something. Where's the effing sniper? There! If ye... Oh yeah, very nice! And we see him firing the anti-tank system. Let's go! While they are shooting, we now see him firing with his AK. They're yelling, "Come out!" We hear someone yell, 300, which means that someone in their unit's wounded. We now see them yelling for a medic, so that way they can get over to the 300. We see these soldiers continue to lay down fire in the tree line. And that's the end of the clip, but once again showing the Ukrainians continuing on their fight and continuing the push. There was a video I wanted to show to y'all today, but there was a little bit too much organic coolant in it to try and find a way to censor that as best as possible in the video for us to show. But it was of Ukrainian forces continuing to assault towards Klishchiivka. They were clearing a trench, and one of the Ukrainian soldiers ended up getting shot. I'm assuming somewhere up near the top of his arm, or maybe even towards I guess you could say his right upper shoulder. He took it like a champ, actually. He got hit and he went, ugh, and then he just laid down fire, and he got up and he just ran off. He ran back to the behind the line, pulled out a tourniquet. Someone tourniqueted his arm, which I'm guessing shows that it was on his arm instead of his shoulder, and then he just went running on off out of the trench and right back towards most likely a Humvee that was taking him off the field. It was amazing to see, though, that these guys were so professional that even after he had been shot, they kept the squad's formation intact. He didn't just run off immediately. He actually laid down a little bit covering fire for a second, explained the situation to his squad mate, and then the squad mate covered him as he fell back. It was an amazing move by the Ukrainians, and it shows their professionalism even when being faced with mortal danger. And so, once again, this video doesn't really show that exactly, but still an amazing video showing the professionalism of the Ukrainians as they continue on this offensive in the southern flank. We're now going to be moving on into our next bit, where we saw another bit of trench clearing in the area of Klishkiivka. We can hear gunfire, and we can see the soldiers looking into this dugout. We see them looking down the hole. They can't really tell if a Russian's down there or not, so they start firing into the opening to see if any Russian wants to surrender or not, or to clear them out.
I guess that was plenty.
We now see him getting a grenade ready to chuck down the hole. We now hear him yelling to everyone that he's got a grenade. He's about to be chucking it down the hole. They chuck it down the hole, take a few steps back, and the grenade explodes. We now hear the firefight picking up.
Whoa, was that the Ukrainian friendly that he was shooting at?
I couldn't really tell.
And he was shooting basically right at him.
When you see them dragging off a wounded soldier here. We now see the other soldier tending to the wounded soldier's bullets come snapping right over their head.
That guy might have gotten injured by friendly fire.
I can't really tell, and I don't really want to go back and look at it because, you know, it may be showing something. So with that, that's the end of the clip, but we can see the 3rd Brigade continuing their push in that video. We're now going to be moving on into our next one, where we saw the Ukrainians are also using a Mastiff armored car by the British in the area. At least one. We know there's probably multiple of them, but we only saw this one on the video. And so here's the clip. We see some Ukrainians by the side of the road. We can see the Mastiff rolling up. And I gotta tell you, man, this thing puts pavement princesses to shame. This thing is huge. I mean, it dwarfs everything in the area. We can see a Ukrainian squad following behind the Mastiff as it continues to roll on forward. And I gotta tell you, man, honestly, the Mastiff has to be one of the most menacing looking armored cars that the Ukrainians have ever been given so far in this war. I mean, that thing's impressive.
It is pretty cool. I wonder how it works off-road. Is it really good getting over, like, hills and stuff?
I don't know. It looks heavy. I'll tell you that. It looks like the thing weighs, like, I would take a ballpark guess of 16 tons. Let's pull that thing up and let's see how much it weighs. Massive armored vehicle. No, we're not looking for a Cougar. We're looking for a Mastiff. Let's see. So let's go here. So here we go. And let's see. It doesn't give us a weight here, sadly. So I guess we are looking for one of these. And it kind of looks like it a little bit, but not quite. But we'll take a look at this. We'll see what the weight of this one is and try and get like a ballpark guesstimate as to how much that one weighs. So, let's see the mass. I was nearly right. It's in between 14.5 to 17 tons. So that would fall right within the midway point of its lowest weight and its max weight.
Interesting.
Very interesting. Very neat vehicle as well. Let's see. The British. Yeah, this is actually what it is. It's a Cougar, but the British variant of it is called a Mastiff because they've heavily upgraded it with their own modifications. really neat to see one of those in use, and the thing's huge. It's the size, it's bigger than a tank, really. And it's great to know that they have these things as well, because if it's as big as a tank, you got to know it's got to have some pretty decent armor on it, just for it to be considered what nowadays kind of a normal truck. But with that, we're now going to be moving on into our next clip, and where we could see that the 79th Brigade was able to capture a few guys. Or 5 guys, burgers, and fries. Anyways, here's the clip. And I also can't read off the subtitles on this one, but here's the video.
Мужики, оба мужики. Я вас поздравляю, вы суки. Вы взяли оружие, вы не по понятиям, блядь. Так что вы сученые. Знаете, какие суки, да? Нихуя уже нечестные мужики, блядь. Вас теперь в жопу ебать на зоне русской будут. Там и жопу оставим такие, блядь.
What the hell? What in the world is this guy talking about? Man, he said, we caught your ass in the Russian. So he said, I don't have an ass. And then the Ukrainian says, oh, there's a little bit left. What the hell? I don't even know what that exchange is. But anyways, with that, we're now going to be moving on from that clip. Very interesting to see. And we're now going to be moving on from the southern flank, where we've seen that the situation is falling apart completely now. And we're now going to be moving on into the center of the city inside of Bakhmut, where we can see Bakhmut 1 year ago and Bakhmut today. Top picture is the exact same spot of Bakhmut as it was seen a year ago near the beginning of the war, and this is what Bakhmut looks like now at the bottom picture. Pretty big difference. Moving on into the next picture, we can also see, and unfortunately I believe this is the civil administration building, if I remember that correctly, and we can see that's completely destroyed right there. I may be wrong on that one, because I don't specifically remember the civil administration building having a red roof. Moving on to the next one, we can also see this area of Bakhmut as well, and now completely reduced. It's been reduced down to its foundations and some of its basic walls on the bottom floor. In the final picture, we can see another area of high-rises within the city of Bakhmut, and once again, what it looks like today. And it's insane to see that Bakhmut has turned from a really normal-looking Ukrainian city into a World War I hellscape. It looks worse than Mariupol, honestly, and it shows how heavy the battle has been inside the city for control of it.
This is literally scorched earth at this point.
It really is. It looks like the buildings have even been scorched completely throughout, on the sides, the roof, everywhere. Even the basements are most likely scorched. But once again, showing how heavy the Battle of Bakhmut has been. And I remember that we've slowly seen, since the beginning of this battle, the city of Bakhmut turn into the top, from the top picture into this bottom picture right here. We've seen that unfold for nearly 8 months at this point. And it shows how devastating these kinds of wars really are, and how devastating the Russian army really is to an area. Because if you saw the United States or any other Western military fighting in an area like this, it would not look as thoroughly devastating. Of course, devastation would still exist. I'm not saying that we have like a light as a feather touch on everything, but it certainly wouldn't look like this either. But with that, we're now going to be moving on from that little bit of news inside of the city of Bakhmut and into our next clip, where we saw the Wagner shelling the Ukrainian soldiers in the area. Apparently, this video was taken by a Wagner drone, and we can see it flying up and spinning around in a circle and showing a part of the city of Bakhmut. And we can now see what may be MLRS fire peppering the entire area. And we see that the MLRS, of course, indiscriminately hits just about everything. A park, a building, a parking lot, a grocery store, anything in the area is being hit by these MLRSs. We now see the drone flying forward as the smoke starts to fill the air from the rocket's impact. We now see even later on in the day, more MLRS barrages continue against the Ukrainians. And yet the Ukrainians still hold these areas, and these are the kind of barrages that they endure multiple times a day, every single day during the battle, and yet they still manage to hold parts of Bakhmut even still. And to prove that, although Deep State shows that the Ukrainians do not have any holdings within Bakhmut, we got another video today of some Ukrainians that were in the bottom of a high-rise building and were continuing to defend the city. Video right here. When you see them getting out of the door and into the rubble field, we can see a Ukrainian soldier over there on the other side of the street with an RPG-7. We see him firing. When you see the next Ukrainian soldier running out, preparing to fire as well. You see him shouldering, firing, and running back. And that's
They just chunked the weapon?
Yeah, he chunked it because that's like a one-time use system. So once you fire it, you can never use it again, so you just throw it away. But with that, that's the end of the clip. And once again, showing that the Ukrainians are still holding on to the city. We don't really know specifically where, because Deep State, once again, I'll show you. Deep State does show that they have given up the entirety of the city. There's not a single block that they hold anymore, at least firmly. They're showing that everything is no man's land. But by this video here, we can clearly see that there are Ukrainian forces that are still holding some parts of the town. So we don't really know where it is that they're holding the town. It's probably within their original defensive perimeter we had seen a while ago. But Deep State isn't showing us exactly where. With that, we're now going to be moving on from that little video clip and on further north into the northern flank. And while the northern flank is showing promise, and we do see Ukrainian forces continuing to advance in this area, it appears that there is less video evidence and footage that is coming out of this northern flank. And so starting up near the area of Krasnopolivka, we saw that a Russian position was destroyed by a Ukrainian tank. Now we can hear the loot playing as the Russians realize they're being spotted by a drone, and we can now see him leveling his AK and trying to shoot down the drone. This would prove challenging with a shotgun and practically impossible with an AK, and we can now see the Ukrainian tank rolling forward with an entire infantry squad riding behind it. We now see the tank stopping, we can see the infantry unloading, and the tank is now moving free of the infantry. Tank's taking its time, making sure to size up its targets and blast them away at point-blank range. We now see him firing a second shot, and it appears that we may even see a Russian running from the field right there. A lucky guy who made it out and apparently isn't... Oh, well, actually, he was seen. It looks like he was seen near the end. But with that, that's the end of the clip. And once again, a huge credit to the 30th Brigade, whose emblem you see right here, that conducted that point-blank range trench clearing. And it appears that they did an incredibly good job. And it appears that nobody was really able to escape the wrath of the 30th Brigade. We're now going to be moving on to our only other clip in the northern flank today, where we saw a T-72M tank once again from the Polish in service in this northern area. And here's the clip. And you see it driving over practically dirt field. And we see the dust field that is flinging up in the background and the Ukrainian flag flying over the tank. And that's
Roll the coal, Terry.
But in reverse, Terry. But that's the end of that clip. And an interesting question I saw in the live chat, which was about our last clip actually, was why in the world do tanks take point-blank shots? We almost see that as the only shots they really take over the course of the war, especially against infantry positions. And that is a great question. The reason why tanks take point-blank shots like these is because trenches are really tough to fire at and almost impossible really to hit from long ranges. Tanks are accurate in the modern day, don't get me wrong, but it's very hard to land a shot that goes inside of a trench from really anywhere farther away than point-blank range. I would pull out Microsoft Paint, but hopefully my, just worded explanation gets the point across fairly well. You see, these guys are 6 feet below the ground. Their heads hardly pop over the surface if they do at all. And so if a tank was to fire a shot from a distance at this trench, the shot would either land in front of it and explode here, and the Russians wouldn't be injured, or it would fly over the trench and explode behind it, and once again, as long as the Russians are keeping their heads down, they would once again be completely uninjured. And so a tank largely has to get point blank on the trench, so that way you can see a wall of the trench and then fire at that wall. By doing that, the high explosive shell will explode in the trench instead of past it or in front of it, and so that way the explosive damage is actually caused inside of the trench instead of just around the general area. But that's why they do that. Also, another reason that's making that a lot easier for the Ukrainians to do than the Russians at this point is that the Russians largely lack any kind of anti-tank weaponry, and so the Ukrainians have a pretty good luxury of just being able to roll a tank up to a trench like this and start lobbing HE shells right inside of the trench at point blank range, making sure to wipe out the infantry, and if any Russian soldiers are escaping, of course, like we saw in this clip, the infantry that are supporting these tanks, make sure to clear those out of the way as well, so that way there is no extra risk posed by those fleeing soldiers. And so with that, hope that explains why we see this as kind of a common tactic. It's really the only way to clear a trench with a tank is to get point blank and use the tank gun's depression to be able to look down at a wall of a trench. That's really the only way to clear them. And so with that, we're now going to be moving on from that little bit of news in the northern area of Bakhmut, and that is all the video clips that we actually have from the city today. Once again, the Ukrainians are wiping the floor against the Russians, especially in the southern direction, and they've made it to Klishchiivka. They've liberated Klishchiivka from what we've heard, at least from Prigozhin, and they're probably going to be moving even further behind the city. And this is certainly causing a massive panic for the Russian forces in Bakhmut and north of Bakhmut, as that means either the northern flank will also start to have some serious problems, or the Wagner will have to start pulling forces out of these central city and move them down towards the southern flank to try and stop its hemorrhaging and collapse, which also means they'll be further weakened inside of the city. We're now going to be moving on from the Bakhmut area and down into the area of Yenakieve. Let me just pronounce it in its Ukrainian name. Yenakieve. And we can see right here that an explosion was reported in Yenakieve. I had to get that name correct because I've never pronounced that name before, but we can see the picture right there of a smoke plume coming out of the town, and we really don't have an idea as to what hit this or what this is. They say it was a powerful explosion. The smoke cloud here indicates that it was a significant explosion, but it wasn't massive. It wasn't the biggest ones that we've seen in the war, and it could have been anything. It's probably not a storm shadow, considering those are rare, inexpensive, and also long range, and this is within HIMARS distance of the front lines, so it may have been that a HIMARS hit this target, but once again, we're not entirely sure. We're now going to be moving on from that little bit of news and on into the area of Verkhnoutoretsky, where we saw that a cursed tank thing has appeared on the front lines. As I've been saying, and it's certainly true even now, the Russians are suffering for armor of any kind, really, and they've been really trying to find a way to fill this armored gap. And they've come up with this thing. This is horrendous. It's a T-54 main battle tank. Turret apparently never existed, and we can see that the hull, even the flaps above the tracks, are heavily rusted, so we know that this thing came right out of a tank graveyard, and they took a 1950s era S-60 anti-aircraft gun and have mounted it to where the turret would be. This thing is an unholy abomination against everything on Earth, and I've never seen anything as cursed as this before in the war, and it's once again reiterating that idea, if anyone ever had a question about it, that the Russians are running out of stuff. This is the best proof that we ever had that they're even running out of usable tanks, and they're now having to try and cobble together anti-aircraft guns and tank hulls to make something with some kind of firepower out there somewhere. This is truly just junk. And so with that,
one advantage it might have, though, is it looks so trash, the Ukrainians might not even fire at it because they think it's junk.
Well, I have a feeling they'll fire at it once that 57mm gun starts shooting at them, because while the gun's
I mean, yeah. So while it's just sitting there, they won't fire it at it. They'll think it's trash.
Nah, man, dude, I bet you this. They're going to take a little kamikaze drone with an RPG shell and ram it into this thing just to make it even more of a joke. We'll probably see this thing burned out in a week, no doubt about it. But it's hideous. I don't think anyone can deny this is the most hideous and cursed thing we've seen in the war so far. It's bad. It's really bad.
Bad.
I mean, what the hell does this thing even look like? Like, what is this comparable to? This is like the Khyber Pass tank of, like, the tank world.
It's, what's even on the side of it? Is that boxes of ammo and a coil of cable or something?
It looks like Morse cable for their telegram that they'll be using to communicate with command. Maybe an ammo box or two, and then just crap attached to the front. Let's go get the front view here to see what those are. I don't even know what that stuff is. I really have no idea. It's just like random garbage around the base of the turret, and then the anti-aircraft gun, and then the T-54's hull. It is ugly. That's really all I can say about it, is that it's just hideous and it's obsolete in every way. And so with that, we're going to be moving on from this, as Trister calls it, stupidness. And we're going to be moving further on down the line and into our next bit of news in the area of Vasily, where we saw that a Lancet drone was shot down and the remains were found inside of a forested area. We can see the remains of this Lancet drone right here. And we can even see that they started to gather it up and take it on behind the lines. And this apparently came out of the Lancet. It looks like Doroganov, let's see, for Kolfir? I don't know what this is, because it doesn't seem that anything's saying vodka or anything like that. It's some kind of a clear water-like liquid. It's not water.
Vodka?
It's not vodka. I don't know what this is. If anyone could tell us what this stuff is, it looks kind of like vodka. But it's not vodka. I don't know what it is. I thought it was kompot for a minute, which is like a fruit juice that's from Russia, but it's not kompot either, because that usually is like red, and this is clear. And some people are saying it's Russian Snapple. Is it? Dude, this is like alcoholic Russian Snapple. It looks like it's alcohol. Let's see here. Sex 2 said piss.
White Lightning 777.
Oh man. So it says kefir. Yeah, it may be kefir. Yeah, it is kefir. The little E letter is gone there. It is kefir. And so with that, we're going to be moving on to our next picture, where we once again see the parts of the Lancet and the giant oculus it uses to guide itself. We can see in another picture the circuitry that makes the Lancet operate. We can also see the motor. It's just a simple electric motor. We can also see just insulating foam and random crap shoved into the fuselage. And then finally, in the last picture, we can once again see the multiple parts the Lancet's made of, just sitting out on this paveway here, or pavement. And it looks like they're trying to take it apart and take a good look at this thing. Regardless, it sucks, and they were able to shoot it down and then just gather up the parts. And so with that, we're now going to be moving on from the area of Vasily and further on down the line into Marinka, where we saw, once again, another look was taken around Marinka. Drone pilots love to take a propaganda around Marinka, and here is another one, once again to show the damage in another part of Marinka town.
This is a propaganda if I've ever seen one.
I gotta tell you this is certainly not that kind of propaganda that the British make. This is horrendous. Luckily, citizenry haven't really lived in Marinka for nearly 8 years. It's practically been a ghost town for the past 8 years, and so there aren't really a lot of citizens whose lives are at risk here. But there are many citizens whose lives have been completely destroyed, around 10,000 of them. And that was Marinka's original population before the war in the Donbass began in 2014. And that's the end of the clip, but once again showing a small part of the complete destruction of the town of Marinka. And yet the Ukrainians still managed to hold it, and one day, hopefully, they'll be able to rebuild the town. And so with that, we're now going to be moving on into the area of Yenakieve, where we saw that a BMP was destroyed by an FPV drone. Well, you see the BMP right there, and it's gone. We can see another one, and it's gone. And we can see the BMP smoking, and it's gone. And so with that, that's the end of the clip.
Gone.
And so with that, that's the end of the clip. But great to see multiple APCs being destroyed. We're now going to be moving on towards the area of Velika Novoselka, where we saw that a Spartan armored personnel carrier was stuck in the mud.
Минки, снарядки. А Лео нашел вот эту вот. Лео, что это за дребедень? Лео, короче, нашел вот эту вот дребедень. Сказал, говорит, заведет и по ней будет мотаться по Киеву.
We see the poor thing stuck in the mud.
Ой-ой-ой, да? Пойдет?
Hopefully a recovery vehicle is on the way to help this thing to get on out. And so with that, that's the end of that clip as well. But once again, you can see the problems that Ukrainian soldiers face during seasons like the Rasputitsa. We're now going to be moving all the way down the line and into Kiev, actually. I thought there was one more bit of news near the Kherson area, but that was actually our last bit of news in the news segment. And so, Now, without further ado, we're going to be moving to Kyiv to cover the speech from President Volodymyr Zelenskyy here on the 448th day of the war. Before we go into that, though, I would like to thank everyone so much who rejoined us here to watch this stream live. I'm terribly sorry, again, everyone, about the internet connectivity issues that we had. Unfortunately, we can't really control that right now. We will be, hopefully. I think we're seeing a fix coming down the line in a few months. Hopefully a hardcore fix that will fix this problem permanently. But until that time, we still have to deal with the occasional problem like this here and there. I still have to thank everyone so much once again for rejoining us. It's amazing to know that nearly 4,700 of y'all came here for the second part of the stream. And if you are new to this stream, make sure to subscribe, because we greatly appreciate when people subscribe. It makes us very happy, and it lets us know that people do enjoy what we do. We run the stream 6 days a week at the exact same time, every single night, covering the news of the war. And so if you also want to subscribe and know that we'll be a reliable news source, we are also one as well. And so without further ado, here's the speech from President Volodymyr Zelenskyy. Speech! And it's a short one.
Дорогі українці, сьогодні російський обстріл нашої Херсонщини забрав життя ще однієї дитини, хлопчика, його звали Всеволод. В липні йому мало би виповнитись 6 років. Мої співчуття рідним і близьким. Це був черговий артилерійський удар терористів. Люди просто були на вулиці біля звичайного магазину. Чергові обстріли Сумщини, Чернігівській області, Дніпропетровщині, Запорізької області, Донбасу, все це знову і знову доводить, що потрібно ще більше консолідації світу для тиску на Росію, ще більше сили для наших воїнів, щоб знищувати кожну позицію терористів, ще більше підтримки для наших людей, щоб рятувати життя і повертати безпеку для наших міст і сіл. Сьогодні провів кілька підготовчих нарад щодо нових кроків для зміцнення нашої оборони та наших міжнародних позицій. Пройшов і доволі успішно візит української делегації в Республіки Корея, урядовці, перша леді України. Були зустрічі, переговори різного рівня, звернення Олени до народу Кореї і усіх народів регіону на вагомому форумі «Азійське лідерство». Я дякую пану президенту Республіки Корея за чітке засудження російської агресії та підтримку глобальних зусиль заради миру. Є важливе рішення Ради Європи. У підсумковій резолюції саміту, що відбувся в Ісландії, зафіксована підтримка української формули миру. І це важливо, що Європа настільки консолідована заради чесного, мирного плану. Дякую за це всім лідерам нашої Європи та кожній державі-учасниці Ради Європи. На основі саме такої консолідації ми будемо і надалі обмежувати можливості держави-терориста, продовжувати цю її агресію і будемо надалі збільшувати наші можливості повертати справедливість, звільняти нашу землю, рятувати наших людей. Я хочу подякувати окремо парламентарям 2 європейських країн. Сенат Франції сьогодні проголосував за визнання Голодомору 32-33 років геноцидом українського народу. Вдячний кожному і кожній, хто підтримав це рішення. Зміцнювати історичну правду – це місія сильних. Парламент Естонії ухвалив заяву на підтримку нашого прагнення стати повноправним членом НАТО і закликав Альянс підтримати це рішення. Дякую усьому естонському народу, усьому політичному класу Естонії за таку чітку підтримку нашої спільної євроатлантичної безпеки. Дякую усім, хто допомагає нам захищати наших людей, нашу Україну і життя в цілому. Слава усім нашим воїнам, які зараз в бою, на бойових завданнях і бойових постах. Слава кожному і кожній, хто зараз в епіцентрі бойових дій на сході нашої країни і над зусиллями не дає ворогу наступати. Я дякую вам, воїни. Слава Україні!
And with that, that's the end of the speech from President Volodymyr Zelenskyy. And that wraps up our day 448 news summary. I have to thank every single one of y'all so much for watching once again. And once again, I have to apologize for the internet outage. Sadly, we can't control that kind of stuff, but I hate that it did end the stream and kind of cut it into 2 parts. But with that, we're about to be moving on into our question segment. We're going to address all of the super chats that have come in from the last stream before it was cut off. and this one, and then we'll be addressing as many live chats as we can. Also, those will be coming in part from the last stream as well. I have to thank every single one of y'all once again for watching. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and without further ado, we're going to be moving on into those polls. And so with that, what do we got, Matthew?
All right, so our very first poll says, the Chinese envoy to Ukraine has wrapped up its visit and has departed Ukraine. And what are your thoughts? 52% said it was not needed and pointless. 12% said unsure. 15% said I'm indifferent to this. And 20% said all attempts at peace are welcome. And I'm going to fall within the 52%. I personally don't think the Chinese will ever broker peace between Ukraine and Russia that is in Ukraine's advantage. I think they're simply showing up to make it seem as if they're trying to do something right. But in reality, they obviously have an ulterior motive, in my opinion. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would say they probably do have an ulterior motive. I wouldn't trust them to broker a peace as well, and they're probably just there for the formality of it. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, and we're on to the next one.
And also, Enforcer, real quick, I know you made this a rule not to solicit funds in the chat. If you would like to go over that one more time, as I've seen a couple things that are a little bit concerning.
Yes, we do not allow folks to come in here and promote their own personal fundraisers because there's always the possibility that there can be scams. I'm not saying that anyone who's trying to solicit or has the idea to solicit is a scammer, but we still want to always play it safe and not allow people to possibly scam folks in the live chat. So we do not allow soliciting of any kind. If you want to support Ukraine on this channel, the only way we approve of support is through our Sunday fundraisers. That's the only way we say that we support Ukraine, and that's the only way we encourage y'all to support Ukraine as well. I can't make testament to the validity or the I guess you could say the security that a random person telling them to support Larry's fundraiser in the live chat is. So we don't allow that kind of stuff to happen. And also, whoever it is who's down there doing that, I haven't seen it personally, but apparently Matthew has, and some of y'all have. Consider it a warning, because if you continue to solicit, we will ban you. I'm not going to have anyone taken advantage of because Larry wants to buy a drone and fly over to Ukraine and use it or something like that. Because who's the hell's to say that you don't take money from these people and then just wander off and go, drink vodka or something in Lviv with all of your boys and pretend to be over there. But with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. And also, well, I'll just ask you about that after the stream, I guess. But with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. And also, Candy Nose said, Larry seems like a good guy.
He's not that
and
guy.
And Sky Girl said, damn, I gave to Larry fundraiser.
Watch out for Larry. And that's one, and let me real quick go through my whole spiel on that instead of just about our live chat. I also highly encourage people to carefully vet what they support out there in the normal YouTube world, because there are plenty of people out there who take advantage of people's kindness. And I love how everyone scoffed at me until James Vasquez became a reality and it was found out that he had stolen millions. And then people went, well, you're only right that one time. There are a lot of people out there like that. We don't make any like qualm about it, how our monetary system works, because that's one of the that's probably the most important thing that we deal with on this channel is y'all support, whether it be to us or to Ukraine. And so we make it very clear where support goes throughout the entire week, like today. If you support this channel, it goes to support us behind the scenes. If you show up on Sunday, then that support goes to Ukraine, and it goes through that specific fundraiser, and it's also managed by YouTube Give as well. If someone out there in the normal world, even in the YouTube world, says, hey, support my fundraiser, I'd usually say, do not support it unless if it's a registered 501 nonprofit with all of the correct paperwork, because there is no legal obligation that they manage your funds the way they say they will, unless if they have that paperwork. So, I always just say that that's something that's fairly good to go with, because you may trust them, and if you do trust them, by all means, go ahead. I'm not saying to treat everyone like they're a scam or anything, but you better trust them very well, because a lot of people ended up trusting James Vasquez, and that didn't turn out well for them. So I hope we address that fairly well, and that's also why we run our stuff through YouTube Give, because y'all don't have to vet whether y'all trust us or not. YouTube is an entity, and they're legally obligated because it is a part of their system and it's written out in writing that they run fundraisers for registered nonprofits, and they even explain on Google, the Google website, when you type in YouTube Give, exactly how it works and how the funding is given and what part of it's taken, which is none of it, and everything else. And that's why we run our fundraisers that way alone. And so with that, I hope that does address that once again fairly well. We are on to the polls.
All right, and moving back into our second poll real quick, just grabbing one thing for the live chat here real fast, and there we go. So our next one says, if you were a Russian soldier, would you go into a losing battle drunk or sober? This is an almost even poll, surprisingly. 46% said, I'm going in drunker than a skunk, 9% said unsure, and 44% said, I'm going in sober, I want to see. Personally, if I was a Russian soldier, I would not want to see, because what you're about to see is going to permanently mess you up and scar you forever. So I would go in drunker than a skunk, to be straight up. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say I would still want to go in sober, because at least then it gives me a chance to run. But it appears that running didn't do anyone well today, at least from what we could see. So with that, I hope that addresses that fairly well. And we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next poll says, sources say that there is no breakthrough with China's peace plan, and Ukraine hasn't provided specific details. And what are your thoughts? 84% said not shocking at all, China is the enemy. 12% said unsure, and 4% said that's surprising and what happened. And not much explanation needed. I am with the 84%. I think China is definitely the enemy here and not the friend of Ukraine. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would say China is a country that should be approached with great apprehension. Honestly, should be distrusted. Look what it's done to every other country it's dealt with so far. It's giving them predatory loans, among other shady things. So I wouldn't really trust them at all, even if I was Ukraine. Now, as the United States dealing with the Chinese on a U.S. level, we can't trust the Chinese whatsoever. On a Ukrainian level, there's a little less of a need to completely distrust them, but I still would not trust them from a Ukrainian perspective either. So with that, I hope that does address that poll fairly well, at least in my opinion. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one says, reports show that Bakhmut is practically completely destroyed, and is it still a symbolic target? Looks like 75% said yes, it is still symbolic, 7% said unsure, 11% said somewhat but not really, and 7% said no, it has lost its symbolic value. And I'm going to actually fall within the 11%. I think that it has lost symbolic value to a great extent, but not completely. I think there's still some emotion around it, but at this point, with it being basically flattened and scorched, it's not really a prize in my opinion. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would say it's every single battle the Russians ever fight, they always decimate the towns. I would say it's still, well, it wasn't really symbolic to start with. I mean, you know, the Russians want to take it because it's the only thing closest to the line that was possible to take 8 months ago. The Ukrainians were more than happy to fight over it tooth and nail because they knew they could inflict massive amounts of casualties. So it never really had any symbolic significance to me, but if it ever did have any, it's certainly lost it by now. It's not a town that's even intact to be fighting for. Every single building has been destroyed completely. So with that, I hope that does address that poll, in my opinion, fairly well. And we are on to the next one.
And the next poll says, do you think Ukraine will become a global superpower after the war is over? Looks like 58% said, a regional power only. 20% said, yes, it will be a global superpower. 6% said unsure, and 16% said no, they will remain the same. And I wasn't able to put this as an option, but I would say it depends. If the West ends up providing F-16s and fighter jets and a lot of other advanced equipment, in my opinion, it's very likely that Ukraine might become a superpower in the world. And also, Ukraine is going to receive a ton of investment after the war's over from Western investment firms. So a lot of money is going to be flowing through Ukraine, and that has the potential to explode and also grow its economy at a very, very fast pace. But if they don't get this equipment and also these investments, it could mean Ukraine simply remains a regional superpower or a regional power. But it all depends. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say I don't think they'd ever become a superpower. The superpower is not a thing that just gets handed out to everyone. There's really only one superpower in the world, and it's the United States. During the Cold War, there was only two. There was the Soviet Union and the United States. The Chinese aren't even really considered a superpower. They're considered like a fledgling great power about to become a superpower. but they're not, you know, even in the superpower realm either. So it'd be pretty wild to say that Ukraine would become a superpower, because there's many countries that have the kind of weaponry they have that aren't considered superpowers. If I remember correctly, Turkey has loads of F-16s, and they will probably never be considered a superpower. They're at best a regional power. But let me make sure, and let me go down here. Yeah, here it is. Here's an F-16 from the Turkish Air Force, and they have plenty of modern advanced weaponry. They have Leopard 2A4s, they have F-16s, they have modern Western artillery. They have a pretty decent economy, and they're considered at best a regional power, especially considering that the Ukrainian GDP is, I think, like $300 billion. Ukraine GDP is $200 billion, actually. And if they grew to, say, 1.2 trillion, maybe, in the next 10 years, even then, their economy is only about the size of South Korea's, and they're not a superpower either. So by an economic or a military perspective, they would probably never be able to become a superpower, and also their population is sizable. It's 43 million, which is kind of getting on up there, but it's not big enough where they could really start to burgeon on into like the superpower realm. They'd probably be a regional power at best. But with that, I hope that addresses the poll, in my opinion, fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
Right, and that was our last poll, so we are moving on to our Super Chat questions. And up first, we have a $110 Super Chat from none other than Mark, Colonel of the LLC. And thank you, Mark, very much for that continuous support. And he says, vote for PSYOPs for head of the CIA.
And good lord, I gotta thank you so much for the massive amount of support, Mark. And also, I have voted for PSYOPs for head of the CIA. I think he ought to become the leader of the CIA. I think he'd be a great guy. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the unbelievably massive amount of support, Mark, and helping this channel to keep on running. And also sticking with us from the first part of the stream to the second part. That is some commitment right there. And I also noticed that you're one of the first people to comment on all the short videos these days as well. And for that, I thank you. You're dedicated to the Lee Spring Army, and certainly worthy of the title of Colonel. I don't know why in the world you have not promoted to General yet, but he is only a Colonel. I don't know why. We've given him the ability to promote to General so many times, yet he has never taken it. But still, thank you so much once again for the massive amount of support, Mark, and I would second that vote. And so with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you once again for helping this channel to keep on running.
Yes, indeed. And up next, a big shout out to BC Skyman, the channel legend, who puts in a $100 Super Chat. And thank you very much, BC, for that very generous support. He says, sorry, I haven't been here. It's been crazy busy with the AC business, but here's some coffee and donut money and a chat question, please.
And I thank you so much for the massive amount of support, BC Skyman, the absolute legend with the amazing car collection. And I've got to thank you so much for helping this channel to keep on running and giving us some coffee and donut funds. We love coffee and donuts. We love coffee and donuts to an unbelievable margin. And I've got to thank you so much. Yes, sir. Let's go. And I got to thank you so much for helping us out with those funds. You have been an OG on this channel. You've been around since day 4, in original Old Guard, and an Old Guard even by the new standard. And I got to thank you so much once again, BC Skyman, for being here with us through and through and helping us to keep this thing running. Of course, I understand it has got to be busy as hell in the AC industry because it's warming up here in the South. It's getting on into the 90s already, at least here in Alabama, on a consistent basis in the daytime, and it is hot as hell. It's so hot, I think you could freeze to death out there. Oh, Susanna.
But please don't cry about it.
Don't cry about that. Don't be a weirdo or anything. I don't know what's up with that song, man.
If you see somebody freezing to death in the heat, you better start crying because something is terribly wrong.
One second, I gotta pull up the lyrics to Oh, Susanna. Do we hear that wrong, or is that like the real lyrics?
I think it's real, but we're going to get copyrighted into oblivion for playing it.
The sun's so hot, I froze to death. It really does say that. How the hell do you freeze to death in hot heat? That makes no sense. That's got to be the dumbest lyrics to a song ever, and it's made by like, I guess you could say by like not Michael J. I'm trying to think of someone else who's a big name in the modern music world, because this guy didn't go around molesting folks, so we gotta knock Michael Jackson out of the category. Who else is a big time singer in the modern world, or a big time songwriter, Matthew?
I don't know.
I don't know. I really don't know. This guy was a big deal back in the day. Stephen Foster wrote a lot of songs that were kind of like for show business back in the olden times in the United States, and that's got to be the dumbest lyrics I ever seen him wrote. And also, Trista said heat stroke. But how in the world does that make you freeze to death? I don't know. I mean, like,
I don't understand that.
maybe you feel cold when you have a heat stroke. I think that's it, actually. I don't know. It still sounds weird to me, though. But still.
It's so hot I froze to death, though? Like, is that kind of some kind of slang for heat stroke? I don't understand.
I don't know. I have no idea, really. I can't do that one, but still. America can be summarized in one word. About that, we're on to the next one. Thank you once again for the massive amount of support, BC Skyman, and helping this channel to keep on running. But I hope your business is doing well, at least at this time of year, because once again, it is hot down here already. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again for this massive amount of support. And we actually got an answer from Twister. You get pale and look cold. So apparently it's supposed to be a reference to getting heat stroke.
Oh.
So heat stroke is.
I mean, just because they're cold, does that mean they're freezing?
I don't know. That's a good question. The debate continues. Aristotle versus Plato. Is it okay to freeze to death in the burning hot heat? And so that we're on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $100 super chat from Are You Scared? And no, we are not. But thank you very much for the support. And they said, first time with my dad.
Hey, and I thank you so much for the support. Are you scared? And are you? You better be. Thank you so much.
3 more days, Papa.
Do I look like a real boy, Papa? And I gotta thank you so much for the support, Are You Scared? And helping this channel to keep on running, because it means a lot to us that folks like you, along with your dad, are watching, and not only that, help us to keep this thing rolling. It's great to know that folks are always really into this channel, and I gotta thank you so much for supporting us as well. And I think you mean it's the first time with your dad, and I think I have seen you in here a few times before, so if it is your first time watching with your dad, I hope your dad's been enjoying the show. We try our best to make sure that it's not only informational about what's going on in the war, but also a little entertaining in a way, so that way the war doesn't get too dreadful for people to pay attention to. But with that, thank you so much once again for support. I hope that does address that fairly well. And thank you once again for helping this channel to keep on rolling. If it wasn't for folks like you, this channel wouldn't be possible. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again.
And up next, we have another super chat, this time from Backyard Racing, who's making a comeback once again with a $100 super chat. And thank you so much, Backyard Racing, for that very generous support. And he says, great stream as always. Boys, keep up the great work, and happy B-Day to Matt. And thank you very much. It's not my birthday, but guess what? I take it anyway. Oh, I get no respect around here.
Oh, man, I'm telling you. I get no respect around here. I was told that every time someone wishes you a happy birthday, you get older and get closer to dying, and everybody doesn't stop wishing me a happy birthday. Oh, man, they want me to roll over and die. Oh, man, it's terrible. Oh, real terrible. But still, thank you so much for the massive amount of support, Backyard Racing, and once again, helping this channel out in a big way to keep going. And thank you so much for enjoying it as well. You've been around for a good while, and I remember the first time you popped up, because every time we see anyone in the live chat that has a check mark by their name, and their name's highlighted, we're like, who in the world is that? I remember the first time you popped up, and we were like, oh, who in the world's that? And then we checked out your channel, and we saw the Hot Wheels racing thing. And I always go back to that, because that was one of the coolest things I've ever seen. It was really, high effort. It was really worth it too, and a really interesting video. And I hope that you make those once again sometime in the future, because those were neat and I really liked them. And I thank you so much also for enjoying the work we do and supporting us, that way we can keep it up, because folks like you do make it possible through your support for us to keep up this good work and making sure that the short war summaries go out, the Twitter keeps running, the live streams keep running, even once they go down due to internet issues, they still come back and they're still going at it. And I got to thank you so much once again for supporting us, so that way we can make this possible. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one. But thank you so much once again, Backyard Racing, for the massive support.
Yes, indeed. And also, Mace said, what does that check mark mean? That check mark means you're verified, which means you've hit the big time.
That means you have over 100,000 subscribers, and hitting 100,000 subscribers on YouTube is a massive obstacle. In fact, if you have more than 100,000 subscribers on YouTube, usually you fall within the top 1% of YouTube channels in size. There are around 33 million active YouTube channels that are uploading videos every single day on YouTube, and out of those, there's only about 300,000 of them or so that have more than 100,000 subscribers, which means that you fall within the 1% of YouTube channels. And so with that, Hope that does address that fairly well and explain why the check mark is a big deal. And also, if you notice, when we type in the chat, hello, we also have a check mark. And
Hey, we made it.
Hey, let's get it. Oh man, Lyle, turn on the TV. They hit the Pentagon. But anyways,
oh my God, that turned dark.
So that's what. Anyway, wait, you don't know the joke?
I don't know if I want to know.
Oh wait a minute, you got to see this one. Hopefully they don't mind me showing this because I'm a huge fan of these guys. At least their comedy style. But let me. Oh, it has a curse word in it. I can't show it. I forgot. But it's a great thing. Just type in on YouTube, Lyle. They hit the Pentagon. It's some guy who did like this voice routine thing, and it was great. It was filled with emotion. It was great voice acting. But anyways, with that, hope we addressed that fairly well. Thank you so much once again for the support, helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Justice U, who puts in a $20 super chat. And thank you so much, Justice, for the support. And he said, thank you for all the great work.
And thank you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And thank you for enjoying the work we do. Thanks to support from viewers like you, we're able to keep this thing rolling. And if it wasn't for folks like y'all, it wouldn't be possible for us to keep this stream going. And I got to thank you so much once again for making this possible for us and making sure that we can keep running this thing the way we've run it, absolutely free of ads and sponsors since the very first day. And thank you so much once again for enjoying what we do. And we also appreciate the kind words greatly. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again for helping this thing to keep on rolling. And it looks like a couple of y'all actually picked up on what that joke was about. Like Gary, he said, they hit the Pentagon. That's exactly it. So with that, we're on to the next one.
All right, and up next, we have a $20 super chat from Yon Ranger. And thank you very much for the support, Ranger. And they said, yeah, I've been digging through those short videos and the fact that they are ad-free. DDoS fun.
And thank you so much for the support. And thank you for enjoying our ad-free premise. It's rare to see on YouTube a video that's ad-free, especially one that doesn't have double ads that are unskippable nowadays. And we've been able to run this thing since its start, ad-free and sponsor-free, and it's thanks to folks like you who support this channel and help us to keep this thing running. Y'all are the ones who support us, so that way we can make sure that we never have to run an ad or a sponsor. We also never would. I'd rather let the channel die before we ever ran an ad on these streams or had a sponsor for it. And I got to thank you so much for making that possible. And also dedicating a little bit of funds to our DDoS fund. I think that was more so just the internet literally dying tonight. I couldn't even see where that would be a DDoS attack. The internet just disconnected completely and then came back 5 seconds later. But still, thank you so much once again for helping this channel to keep on running. I hope we addressed that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one we have is from none other than Mace. And it's good to see you again, Mace. He puts in a $20 super chat. And they say, not much to say. I just wanted to support the channel and keep up the good work. Slav Ukraine. And you can take this one from the live chat.
And Slav Ukraine. And thank you so much. That almost fell off the desk.
The Yaroslav was so strong, the power is over there.
Man, the power was so strong. It almost threw this thing off the desk. But still, I gotta thank you so much for the massive support, Mace, and helping this channel to keep on running. And it's perfectly fine not to have much to say. The support means a lot, and says a lot, really. It says that you enjoy the channel enough that you're helping us to keep this thing rolling, and that means a lot to us, because if it wasn't for folks like you, it wouldn't be possible for us to keep this thing rolling, so thank you. And also, we will be making sure to hand it over to the live chat, and thank you, Mace, for once again being a true G, and also being around with this channel for a pretty long while. And so with that, we're on to the next one, and thank you once again for the support.
All right, and that live chat question is going to go to Tank2, who says, Matt, how would you describe the Daily War Progress meeting with Putin? Do you think any of his generals tell him the truth?
I think they do. At this point, there's no way they couldn't be telling him a lie. They would have to be the truth with how badly things are really going. And I guess that Putin's decided that no matter how bad it's going, he's going all in, I suppose, because there's really no other way to explain what they're doing right now. So I would say that, in my honest opinion, I think they're telling him everything, and he knows how bad the situation really is. Because and once again, to back that up, there's absolutely no way that anyone was able to explain away why there was a complete void of tanks at the Victory Day parade this year. There's really no way that they could have made that seem like it was a good thing. So he would have to know in the background how bad things are really going. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, at least in my opinion, of what we've been seeing. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again for the support.
Yes, indeed. And up next, we have a $20 super chat from none other than Truster1, who says, HBD to Enforcer Matt. And thank you very much for the happy birthday as well. I'm getting so old, I may need some hospital services soon. Might be catching a coronary, or might be contracting a broken leg. I never know. All the wrong medical terms there. I'm sure you'll appreciate that. But anyway, if I haven't pissed off our in-house doctor at this point, thank you so much for the support.
Don't run away. Don't run away. You're sitting there, Randy, going, mental problems. You're like, haha, actually, it's medical. But I keep on hearing Larry talking from me from inside the walls. He's still...
Is that Larry?
Larry? And inside the wall, you hear, hey, man, if you give me $5, I'll go get a drone and send it to Ukraine. you hear that from inside the wall? Or you hear, hey, guys, it's James Vasquez. We're back at it again on the front lines. But anyways, with that, thank you so much once again for the happy birthday to Matthew. It's not his birthday, as of course, but we still thank you so much for the birthday wishes. When he finally gets to his birthday, man, he's going to be having a crazy one. And so with that, we're on to the next one. And thank you once again for the support.
Yes, indeed. And up next, we have a $10 super chat from KG, who says, sad probability Russia/Putin will never surrender, not even if beaten back to the pre-1991 lines. It will take a march on Moscow, and ousting the current regime to stop them for good is what it took before.
And I thank you for the support, and that is an interesting concept. However, I do think the war will largely end once they push them back to the 1991 borders. There really wouldn't be a way for anyone in Russia to justify the continuation of the war, considering there's nothing they even hold anymore that they originally occupied. The only way they could justify the war is let's continue and then try and retake land. But at that point, I don't think anyone would believe that in Russia, even if they are pro-war, because there's no way that they would have lost all of that land and somehow be able to persuade the Russian public that they can take it back. It would have been a constant string of defeats for them to get kicked all the way out of Ukraine in every single direction. And on top of that, if they ever lost Sevastopol port and they didn't cause some kind of a massive row over that alone, they've really lost the whole purpose of fighting the war. So it would be better for them to just quit the war then and there instead of allowing it to continue and most likely allowing the economic destruction of Russia for the next century, most likely. Well, probably that's a little bit more dramatic. Probably at least the next 2 or 3 decades. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. And I thank you so much once again for the support. But you may be correct. I just say things in my opinion, and they're not entirely right. That was just my ideas on it. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that fairly well. And we are on to the next one.
All right, and up next, we have a $10 super chat from none other than Psyops once again, and sadly, he is left for the night. But Psyops said, Psyops is a bachelor, I was congratulating my 2 friends, Adam and Eli, I think, for 5 years of marriage. I am hard to date when half the country county is related. Whoops. Well, useless. Wait a minute. Hold on. I'm butchering the hell out of this one. He says, well, unless you're from Alabama.
Oh, man. Oh, man, I'm telling you. I get no respect around here. I'm telling you, it's terrible. Oh, real terrible. Even my viewers make fun of me. Oh, man, for being from Alabama. Oh, man, it's terrible. And I gotta tell my beautiful girlfriend, my cousin Charlene, about this. Oh, man, I'm telling you, it's terrible. Oh, real bad, real bad. Oh, man. But it's still, thank you for the support, Psyops, and helping this channel to keep on running. And of course, congratulations to both of them for 5 years. That's a pretty good time, and hopefully they'll have another 50. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. It appears that joke got a good amount of laughs. And so with that, thank you so much once again, Psyops. Always a character, and hopefully you're watching this back later on in the day, and of course, helping this thing to keep on rolling. And so with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you once again.
And my apologies to you, Psyops. You're not here to hear it, but I know he'd be clowning on me right now. So, in his honor, apologies. But up next, we have a $10 super chat from David L., who says, would you support Ukraine Special Ops supplying liquor stores with LSD vodka at or behind front line, and C, YouTube military experiments with LSD on soldiers marching.
I have seen it. They fall apart like within, I think, like 30 minutes. It wasn't that long. Like, they just completely fell apart. I would say, I feel like that's probably a war crime to like drug soldiers. Even if it's like an indirect way like that, I feel like that would probably be a war crime. If it wasn't a war crime, I'd say that would be funny and go ahead and do it. Like, not just from the strategic premise. Just imagine Russian soldiers being drunk and completely zooted on LSD. Now, that would be a sight. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support, and also an interesting idea there. And my answer to whether I'd support that or not is conditional on whether it's a war crime or not. If it is a war crime, I say no. If it isn't a war crime, I say go ahead. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support. Hope that does address that. And we are on to the next one. Thank you once again for the support.
And also, he didn't say not to market it as LSD vodka, so you could just put it on the label, and they'd probably love to buy it.
But perhaps, I mean, maybe you could, you know, maybe. But with that, we're on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $7 super chat from Mr. E-Man. He says, please take a question from the chat, and thank you all for being part of the stream.
And thank you, Mr. E-Man, for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. We'll make sure to grab that live chat, and I thank you so much for being a part of our stream and supporting this channel. And so with that, let's go grab that live chat, and thank you once again.
And this live chat is going to go to WNNR 1957, who says, if Putin is killed or thrown out of his office, would China influence the next Russian leader? And what are your thoughts?
I think they would. Oh, certainly they would. Because considering that they're buying most of their resources at this point, from what we understand, including India, India and China would have a pretty good, I guess you could say, hand to play in a Russian power struggle. Of course, it wouldn't be a direct hand where they're directly influencing things, but they would be able to influence things behind the scenes to probably give us a particular person an advantage over others. You know, but that's kind of getting really nuanced, and I honestly can't think of the indirect ways they'd probably be able to influence Russia. Perhaps they would be able to influence the oligarchs in their bid to become the next leader of Russia. Probably the best way that they would be able to do it. But beyond that, I can't really think of any other ways. Most likely indirect, though. But yes, they would have an impact. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support, and I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and up next, we have a $5 super chat from Slava Something, Sith Lord of the LSA, who says, I just want to say, I will not be responsible for what happens in Moscow on the 20th of May. When you see it, I want you to know I had nothing to do with it. Please make it big.
I'm getting no respect around here. Oh, man. I got a Russian guy in the live chat. He's telling me that he's going to commit acts of something in Russia. Oh man, he's getting me incriminated. Oh man, I'm telling you, I get no respect around here. And also, I thank you so much for the support, Slava Something. And if you do, you do. If you don't, you don't. I didn't know. And so with that, thank you once again.
You know what, Enforcer? Peep the Twitter real quick. Go to the feed.
Peter,
our profile feed.
Peter, the Twitter's here.
And so let me go to Twitter. Let me go to
I want to give Slava Something some inspiration.
Oh, yeah?
Scroll down to the Zelenskyy meme. There he is.
Pete goes
Zelenskyy
hard.
goes hard on the Russians. Be like Zelenskyy.
Pete goes hard. Feel free to screenshot, please.
Also, I saw some folks asking about this picture. This was taken really early on in the war, when he obviously hadn't grown his facial hair out yet. So that's why he looks so young. Some people say he looked in bad shape. I thought he looked in pretty good shape, honestly. But what are you saying, Forster?
Honestly, I think he looks in pretty good shape. He's not that bad off, honestly. And also, y'all got to peep this Twitter. We're all the way up to 7,113 followers right now. That's a pretty high amount for Twitter. That's a really high amount for Twitter, actually. I mean, that's incredibly high. And so make sure to go over there and follow it, because it helps the Leaf Spring Army to grow in another direction, the Twitter direction. And so with that, thank you so much for the support, Slava Something. I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we're on to the next one. And thank you once again for the support.
And up next, we have a $5 super chat from CK Bold, who says, as always, take a live chat question. And of course, CK Bold, we will. And thank you very much for the support. And the live chat question goes to Rodin of Anger, who says, question for the Enforcer. With Russia appropriating Finland's assets and consulate Finnish territory, could they invoke Article 5?
Probably not. I have a feeling that the embassies, consulates, and such things like that do not fall within Article 5 protection, considering that it's more of a diplomatic envoy, and more of a privilege that countries are allowed in other countries is to have a, I guess you could say, territory given to them as part of a consulate or something similar. So I have a feeling that it's probably not going to invoke Article 4 or Article 5, considering it's more of a diplomatic thing than a military thing. But that's my honest opinion.
And also, I don't think their consulate or their embassy was taken. I think it was just the bank accounts that were seized.
Dude, right now, the Finnish consulate, we need to buy more copy paper. We're out of money. What? You know, what do you mean we're out of money? But with that...
My question is, why would they have their bank accounts in Russia and not have them in Finland for that?
I don't know. Maybe that was a part of the agreement for their consulate to be in Russia, is that they had their money in Russian accounts. Maybe. I don't really know how that would work. But with that, I hope that addresses that the best I can. And thank you once again for the support. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And we also have a $2 super chat from none other than Dupper Bob, who says, "Love Ukraine."
And... of course, Dupper Bob coming in with that consistent $2 support, and Slava Ukraini. And thank you so much once again, Dupper Bob, for always supporting this channel and helping this team to keep on running. Consistent support like yours means a lot to us, and it helps this channel to keep on rolling a great deal. And so thank you so much once again for the support. And so with that, we're on to the next one. And thank you once again.
All right, and with that being said, we are all out of super chat questions. So we are moving on to our plentiful live chat questions.
Cap.
Starting... There's no cap here. It's all facts.
Man, I'm about
but we're moving on to we are moving on to our Morse code decoders of the stream. Tonight it was Mark Hodges, Sife, JP's Gone Fishing, Cliff Simonson, Earl Bernew, and Paul Schultz. They said tonight's Morse code dispatch: over there, over there. Send the word over there.
Matthew read that off like CBS 18 on the clock, on the spot. Ding, 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 ding.
Prime time, 99.
And that's the sound of money. And y'all got that Morse code message correct. That was the one. And the Ukrainians are sending it over there. They're now over there in Klishkivka, and now they're going to be over there behind Bakhmut. And then the Russians will be over there freaking out. And so with that, thank y'all for deciphering that Morse code message again. Y'all been doing that for 448 days, and I got to thank y'all for y'all's commitment to the Morse code message. Y'all are committed to that grind all the time. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank y'all once again.
All right, and up next, we have a question from Pakatang, who says Ukraine seems to be prepared to use Turkish cluster munitions at the beginning of the counterattack. Is there any prohibition or ban on using cluster munitions?
I haven't heard anything about cluster munitions from Turkey at all, so I would have to say I don't really know about that. I haven't heard about that. So I'm going to have to declare ignorance on that one, and with that, we're on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Bootlegger, who says, do you think the dual SPG is the weapon platform that they are using the handheld Steam Deck to control?
I think it is, actually. I think that was the one that where we saw the picture of a Steam Deck being used to control a weapon system. I think it was that one. And also, I got to thank you for asking a great question because, man, that leg got a boot on it. And so with that, thank you so much once again for a pretty good question. I think that was the one with the Steam Deck, in all honesty. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and up next, we have a $5 super chat from Noob of the Year, who says, if Prigozhin makes it to Prez, do you think he will put Putin on a trench corner to do tricks with Shoigu and something to make up the budget?
I think he might. I think more so, if he became president, he would say this: Shoigu! It's not propasna, and then he would just have and then they'd be found in a park near a kindergarten, 2 bullets to the back of the head each. And that sounds brutal, but that's what they do. But I have a feeling that's probably what would happen. Now, a good joke, I have to say that, but in all honesty, I don't think he'd let them survive if he somehow came into power, because that would be a threat to his power if they existed. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. Thank you so much once again for support. Like the joke, by the way, too. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And we also have a $5 super chat from Russ Rizzo, who says, do you know that Vinnytsia, Ukraine, is Birmingham, Alabama's sister city?
I did, actually. We heard about that a long time ago at the start of the war. And I thought that was really cool, because if you look at Vinnytsia, right here, it looks kind of like Birmingham. I'm just kidding. Birmingham looks a lot worse. I'm just kidding. Birmingham's not that bad.
Not really.
But still, it's pretty cool to know that Vinnytsia is the sister city to Birmingham, Alabama. Pretty neat. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support and sharing that with us, because it is always a cool little fun fact to share, is that Birmingham, Alabama's sister city is in Ukraine out of everywhere else. And so with that, we're on to the next one. And thank you once again for helping this channel to keep on running.
And up next, we have another super chat. This one is from Eric of the Internet, who puts in a $7 super chat. And thank you very much for the support, Eric. And he says, in Canada, what should I be writing my MP to ask them to send to Ukraine? What do we have that they can use, and keep up the great work?
Interesting question. Let's pull up a list of equipment of the Canadian Army. Let's see here. They have some helmets. They have some gear. They have a bayonet, the can bayonet. The Gerber Soldier's Multi-Tool. They also make good baby food. We can also see the SOG Multi-Tool. Don't get it wet or it'll come back soggy. Let's see here. In all seriousness, no. I would say probably, let's see, they could send more rifles, like the C7s. They could also send perhaps some more machine guns, like the C6 or the C9. The M2 Browning, they could also send a good amount of those. Small arms are always needed, and so you could always ask them to send more small arms. You could also ask them to send other things like Laws or Carl Gustavs. The Ukrainians seem to have a liking for the Laws and the Carl Gustavs, as well as the AT4s, so you may want to ask them to send those. Tows and spikes. Spikes, I don't even think the Ukrainians have any experience with the spikes, so they probably have to include the cost of training with those, which would be a little too much. The tows, however, do require a little bit of training, but you could always ask for those to be sent.
All you need to remember is don't step on my toes.
Man, don't be stepping on my toes, but let's see here. What else? You could always give them Chevrolet Silverados, like this one right here.
Oh, that's the one with the broken latch.
Yeah, the broken latch every time. Let's see here. Some supply trucks. They could always use more supply trucks. The tanks. Canada's largely expended the tanks they could give, so can't really ask them to send more of those because they've already sent as many as they could. Could possibly ask them to send a TAPV. It looks similar to a VAB, and therefore I assume it's similar to operate to a VAB, so you could ask them to send those, although those are pretty numerous in number, actually. You could always ask them to send a few recovery vehicles, maybe some armored vehicles like the Buffalo or the Cougar. You could also ask for them to send some basic things here, like the unmanned ground systems. They have a very small number of these, however, so that's probably unlikely that those will be sent. But those are largely the systems that I would say to ask them to send. Kind of a little bit of a list. I had to go through and kind of like select them, but make sure to play that back whenever you need to, and then go, okay, these are the ones that he says should be sent, because I think that those are probably the ones that will have the highest likelihood of being sent, and so it would be the most worthwhile to ask for. And so with that, I hope that addresses that fairly well, and thank you so much for a pretty good question right there as well. And with that, we are on to the next one. Thank you once again.
And the next one goes to Daniel Thompson, who says, do you think that the Russians just walked into a trap set by Ukraine? And also, real quick, I saw Titan Intel say something that I'm going to have to use, regretamine. That's what the Russians are feeling at this point. They have a healthy dose of it. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would say they probably have walked into a trap, because it appears that the flanks are collapsing so quickly, the Russians were never really prepared to take that ground. So I would say yes, I think they have fallen into a trap. Oh, why, yes. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. And we are on to the next one. And also, Matthew, did we get to Russ Rizzo's?
That's next.
Oh,
but
good.
Also, do you think that Russia's had all the regretamine they're going to receive?
No, there will be more regretamine.
Oh, I imagine so, and deservedly so as well. But getting on to that super chat from Russ Rizzo, we have a $5 super chat, and he says, do you think that Putin has learned everyone has a plan until they get punched in the mouth?
Everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the mouth. And I gotta tell you, I thought you was a nice guy, but you're really just a rat piece of shit. Oh, come on, Mike. Not really, man. You're a rat piece of shit. But I'm just kidding, by the way. I'm not saying you are. I'm doing the Mike Tyson voice. And to answer that question, I would say he hasn't, because he hasn't left the war yet, and he's still getting punched in the face. And I'm telling you, everyone's got a plan until they get punched in the mouth. Mike Tyson out here delivering hard, solid left hooks and right hooks. We also delivering solid weed. We got a dispensary in California. it really mellows me out. I'm telling you, man, you don't know what kind of pain I've been going through. And this weed, it really helps me. I learned this from Seth Rogen. That if you have weed, thank you, Seth Rogen, for the laugh, by the way. That was a terrible laugh. But that the weed helps. And so, 420 blazing. And so, thank you for the support. Hopefully that was a good Mike Tyson, I don't know. And also, I threw in a laugh from Seth Rogen. And so with that, we were on to the next one. And thank you once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running.
And like he said, I broke my back. What? What do you mean? Spinal.
I broke my back. What do you mean, my spinal? It's my spine. I broke it. And anyways, we're on to the next one.
All right. And up next, we have a question from, let's see here. Let me put a check mark on that one. We have one from, let's see. I was looking for one from Pakatang. Let's see here. So the one from Pakatang says, historically, has it been important for former leaders to support current foreign policy? Are there historic examples when former leaders damaged foreign policy of later governments?
That's an interesting question. I would honestly have to say I can't really answer that one because that seems to have more of a political spin to it.
Damn.
So with that, I hope that addresses that fairly well. Sadly, can't answer it. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Psyops, who says, didn't Russia lose a ton in Afghanistan too?
They lost a ton, but not a ton like Ukraine a ton. They lost 10,000 guys over 10 years in Afghanistan. That's about 1,000 guys a year. Maybe a little bit more or less, 10,000 divided by 10. I don't know. I mean, I'm not that good at math, but it's around 1,000 a year. In Ukraine, they've lost around, more than 100,000 a year at this point. So it's been a lot more losses in Ukraine than there ever was in Afghanistan. And so with that, I hope that does address it. Well, really good question, by the way, Sibes. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Essel, who says, current U.S. funding for Ukraine is expected to run out in August. Do you think the Congress will maintain support at the same level?
I think that they will continue to support Ukraine. I don't really know where that is coming from, because that sounds a lot like the Javelin ammunition thing at the beginning of the war, where everyone said we were going to run out of ammo in 3 months, and yet we're still giving them Javelin ammo. I don't know where in the world we say there's like appropriated funding that's running out, because we've just kind of, like every once in a while you go, oh, they need more support. And then with the flick of a pen, they get billions of dollars more of support. So I would say that we're certainly going to continue to support them. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. And we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Robert Harrington, who says, how do you think the economic toll on Russia with boycotts, oil and gas reductions, and businesses leaving Russia is affecting their economy, and thanks?
We don't really get a great handle on how badly their economy is being affected, because that information seems to be a little bit more difficult to find for some reason, although it should be clearly obvious. From what we can understand, their economy is being affected, but it's more so in the luxury goods department, more so than anything else. They are still getting the basic necessities of life, such as food, but anything beyond that, it seems as though that's getting a lot more difficult to find. For example, buying a new car, getting a telephone, anything like that, those are starting to disappear. But the basic premise of being able to at least afford food in Russia, that appears to have not disappeared completely. And so the Russian public is not greatly affected. They're not starving or anything, but they certainly are losing out on a lot of luxury goods that they grew accustomed to over about the past 20 years. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, at least from what we have seen and from what we understand and what's going on in Russia. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and up next, we have another super chat. This time is from Luis Vasquez, who puts in a $20 donation. And thank you very much, Luis, for the support. And he says, did you see how close to the front line Prigozhin went just to present the American who died in Bakhmut? He even had to go into a bunker because of mortar fire. Very risky.
I did see a little bit of that. A very small amount, mind you, so it wasn't a large amount of it. But I would have to say all of that seemed to have been maybe an attempt of a ploy to try and make it look like the Americans are officially involved in the war. I think that's why he went through all of those risks to show that, is to try and say, so the Americans are here, and then try and get ammo for that. I think that's why he probably did that. But that was very risky for him, for certain. And so with that, I thank you so much for the support, Luis Vasquez. And also nice to see you around. And thank you so much once again for supporting this channel and helping us to keep this thing on running. And so with that, we're on to the next one. And thank you once again for the support.
And up next, we have a $50 super chat from none other than Magic Skygirl. And thank you very much, Magic Skygirl, for the very generous support. What in the world's going on?
Dude, I literally sat there and leaned back in my chair when I did that whoop, and I like leaned the chair back as I did it, so that way hopefully it'd sound weird. Did it sound good or weird or anything?
It sounded like you took a gasp or something.
Oh, dang it, that didn't come out the way I was hoping then. But anyways, carry on, Matthew.
And Magic Skygirl says, you guys provide great analysis, commentary, and your performers too. Slava Ukraine.
Slava Ukraine. And thank you so much for the support, Magic Skygirl, and helping this channel to keep on running. And I thank you so much for the kind words as well. We try and provide as good as an analysis as we can, but I do have to say this. We don't say this a lot because... And, you know, it's kind of weird because a lot of people are kind of coming to the show new. Some of them are. And so they never really heard me go through all of the normal spills I used to go through a lot. But we are not like the be-all, end-all of news. I'm very happy that a lot of people find our analysis to be very high-end, but sometimes we even get things wrong. And so I always encourage people to find a second source if you would like. I always highly encourage for folks to find a second source of news, especially on the war in Ukraine, so that way you can at least cross-analyze. I would even encourage folks, and I try and do this on their stream every once in a while, to even go and listen to the Russian side, because while it's filled with crap, it's always interesting to hear what they're saying over there, and it gives us a really good idea of what the Russians are really doing and thinking, because while their words seem to be nothing but garbage, it does give us a really good picture of what the Russians are thinking, or if something has really affected them. You can always tell by how violently they retort something, or how violently they react to something, that something must have really hurt the Russian, I guess you could say, strategic situation. It's very important. But I would highly suggest to always vet our information with secondary information, maybe primary sources or anything else. And I also thank you for enjoying our commentary. I always try and make sure that the commentary is light and informational, I guess you could say, and also entertaining. Obviously entertaining. We always try and do that. That really sets us apart from really anyone else that does this, because, you know, there's a lot of people out there who like to make it very serious, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just that I don't really like the idea of making it feel like every single individual viewer has to carry the weight of thousands dead, well, really hundreds of thousands dead every time they hop on the stream. And I thank you so much for enjoying that we try and keep it light around here, and also thank you for saying we're performers. I like to think of ourselves as clowns from the Ringling Brothers Circus, and we always love to keep ourselves up to an incredibly high standard. The Ringling Brothers Circus standard, or the Barnum and Bailey standard. That's honestly the best one. I'm just kidding, but still, thank you so much once again for the support, Master Skygirl, and helping this channel to keep on running, and of course, Slava Ukraini. And thank you so much once again for the support, because folks like you do make it possible for us to keep this channel running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Fern Joseph, who says, can you please ask Enforcer if a hydrogen-powered submarine is feasible?
Yikes, I'm not really a techie, so I wouldn't really be able to say if it's possible, or reasonable. And also, I saw that, man. Come on, man. Both sides are full of crap garbage. it's like, well, you know, I don't see the Ukrainians like lying about everything. Sure, they get things wrong every once in a while. We have seen that. I'm not gonna lie about it. But when the Russians say they've destroyed a Bradley before the Bradleys have even made it into Poland yet, that's when you know someone's lying. I mean, like, we can pull up Russia today and you could see all the lies. Like, hell, they'll sit here and say Americans are starving on Russia today. And I gotta tell you, I need to get on a diet. That's how well-fed we are in America. Anyways, moving on from that, when the world were we on, Matthew? What happened?
Whoa. Hydrogen-powered submarine, is it feasible?
Hydrogen-powered sub. Hydrogen-powered soup.
The moment the CIA hears you're creating a hydrogen power cell, they show up.
So let's see here. This is the Holdolswerk Deutsche Werft GmbH. I'm so sorry to our German viewers. There's a lot of y'all actually, and you know, y'all unfortunately had to hear me butcher your language, and I feel sorry for that. I'm very sorry. I'm very sorry. But this is a a diesel-electric submarine. It is diesel propulsion, air independent. Let's see, using proton exchange membrane compressed hydrogen fuel cells. The submarine can operate at high speed on diesel power, switch to the AIP system, the air independent propulsion system, for silent, slow cruising, staying submerged up to 3 weeks with little exhaust heat. The system is also said to be vibration free, which is amazing in maritime terms, and virtually undetectable. Many of y'all may not know this, but it's been practically impossible in the world of maritime engineering to make it to where propellers generate no vibration. There are actually, on a lot of cruise ships, if any of y'all have ever taken a cruise, there are forbidden RPMs that the ship can travel at because it causes such vibrations that it would be intolerable for the people on board to deal with. And so that's very interesting to hear. This is apparently completely vibration free. That would be revolutionary in the naval world or the maritime world. When was this thing brought about? This thing's been in commission since 2005. So it appears that, at least on this end, hydrogen power for a submarine is possible, and it has been possible since 2005. This would be the proof. But if you're talking about just like raw hydrogen power, like maybe just getting power from the water around it, it doesn't appear that that is possible yet. It appears that it has to use some kind of a compressed hydrogen fuel cell, and that's about the closest that the technology's gotten. But very interesting to hear about that nonetheless. And honestly, I've got to be honest. Is it just me, Matthew, or does this submarine look a lot like one of the final Nazi submarines made in the Second World War? You know, the really advanced ones, like the Type, like 30-something?
I mean, it's possible it's based on it, perhaps, since that's the country which that one originated from.
Submarine. Let me see which one this is. I think it's still around, actually. It's a Type... Yeah, this is it, the Type 21. Kind of looks like it, doesn't it?
Maybe. Not really.
Man, this thing looked like...
I'm not gonna lie, this one looks pretty good. Forgetting the history of it for a minute, this actually is a decent design.
Let's see here. There was 118 of these completed. 785 of them were canceled, and only one of them was preserved. But they're really neat. And also, speaking about subs, this is something really cool. That y'all may not know about, are these submarines in the Second World War called U-boat milk cows. And the U-boat milk cows were U-boats that were built to an excessively massive size. Like, if I can get y'all a picture of the below waterline of these subs, you'll be blown away. So, this is a model, a 3D model, of what a milk cow submarine looked like. And these were submarines that were supply ships, and it was a revolutionary concept at the time, especially for the Germans, and they had to create these things so that way U-boats could operate in the North Atlantic, closer to the American coastline, because otherwise the submarines couldn't travel that far because they didn't have enough supplies. So these things would carry out all the food, the gas, and everything else needed to keep those U-boat wolf packs running in the North Atlantic. And so these things were the #1 target in the early part of the war for the U.S. Army Air Force to go out and destroy, because they destroyed these. The German U-boats couldn't get as close to the Atlantic northern coast in the United States as they could before. In fact, they could probably only make it about halfway into the Atlantic, and then they'd have to turn around and go back to Le Havre in France to resupply. So, really interesting little story there, and it's always wild to see like a picture of the below waterline on these things, because just for context, here is a normal Type, let's see, Type like 14, I believe, U-boat. Actually, sorry, that's that one right there. I think it's a Type like 16 or something like that. Let me see.
They call it a milk cow.
Oh, here we go. So that's what a normal U-boat looks like. That's what a milk cow looks like. You know, just in case we were wondering, they call it a milk cow because it's like it's like filled with like the milk of life that keeps the U-boats running, the food, the gas, and everything else.
Huh, that's kind of odd.
I don't know why in the world you make it so sexual. It's so sexual. anyways.
I wasn't thinking dirty though. I don't know what you're thinking.
Well, I don't know what the hell you were thinking. I don't know what you were thinking.
That.
Hey, I'm walking in. But anyways, with that, I hope that answers that at least the best we can. And with that, we are on to the next. Thank you once again for asking a really interesting question there.
Yes, indeed. And up next, we have a $2 super chat from the Fantamos, who says, go to Oshkosh, Wisconsin, and the Oshkosh JL TVs are made.
Let's see. Oshkosh JL TVs. Oh, those things. We have seen those before. I like them.
Oh, that's very nice. I like that.
Man, that is so cool looking. I would like one of these. Can anyone find us one of these to get? I would like one.
That design is bussin'.
I know, man. That thing is great looking. Let me see if we can get some more pictures of it. Here it is with chains on the tires. Man, that's a look right there. Let's see. Here's one of them being airlifted by Chinook. It's the pickup truck version. Man,
Dang, look at that suspension travel on that.
man. I mean, that's wild, man. And let's see here. What else do we have? Let's see. This one is unmanned.
That's
interesting.
something else.
What the hell does it do? Naval strike missile launcher unit.
Damn.
So it's a drone. It's a drone driven truck. So the whole thing's drone operated, not a single man on this thing, and it launches let's see, anti-ship missiles. That's bizarre. That's really cool actually. Now that we kind of got a little bit more information about it, that is a really neat little system right there.
That is very cool.
Man, that's something like straight out of like a sci-fi video game right there. Really, like the concept and the look of it. That is really cool though. Let's see what else. We got this picture here. I like how they just take this giant armored war machine up into like the picturesque mountains to take a picture with it. It looks that good. They have to give it that like Ford or Chevy commercial treatment in the picture. But still, it's worth it. It's a nice one. And let's see here. Man, I gotta tell you, this one is top of the line. I gotta say, I'm blown away with this one. We haven't seen it a lot. I know we've seen it before on this channel, but I gotta say, amazing design, wonderful one. And so with that, thank you for sharing that with us, and also letting us revisit such an amazing design again. And this, Matthew, is what lets me know that America is an amazing country. Because who in the hell in the world has designed an armored car that looks as nice as this one?
I don't know. I mean, this is like the best I've ever seen.
I mean, this has got to be the top of the line right here. And so with that,
here's my question though. We were talking about this truck, so I'm trying to figure out the context this comment was made in. Carl in the live chat said in all caps, "Play stupid games and win stupid prizes." Does anybody know what that is in reference to?
I don't know. I don't really know. We'll wait for an answer on that one. Hopefully we'll find one. But honestly, that sounds a little sus. Boom, boom. And I gotta thank you so much once again for throwing up something interesting in the live chat. But I gotta tell you, no matter what, that is not as interesting as the impression that Rosie O'Donnell made on her truck seat. It was a rough one. I gotta tell you, the impression that she made on that seat was worse than the impression that, let's see, what in the world can I say that will sound, there's nothing I can say there that would sound neutral. But with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and moving on to our live chat questions once again. We have a question from Beef Taco, who says, does the Enforcer believe that the Bradley fighting system will make a major impact to turn the tide, or will we see many burned out?
I believe it'll make a major impact. The Bradley is a great vehicle. Do not watch the movie Pentagon Wars. It's nothing but anti-Bradley propaganda. Is honestly straight up bull, especially if you know the real story. And also if you want to know the real story, Laser Pig, great channel by the way, makes a hour-long documentary pretty much about how Pentagon Wars lied, and it's backed up with Department of Defense files and paperwork made by the people who were actually portrayed in that movie. And you find out that the people that movie is based around, that make it look like they were the heroes of the day trying to show how inept the Bradley is, those people think that the M113, you know, the armored box, is far better than the Bradley. I don't know how in the world they get that either, because it is, you know, it's a box. It's a box with a 50 caliber machine gun. It's not a Bradley. And it doesn't even, like, you know, it's stupid because they sit there and go in the movie, I'm sorry, I'm going on the side here about the movie, but they go into the movie about how this thing's armor is aluminum, and so it emits toxic fumes when it's hit with a round. But what's stupid about that is that the M113 is made out of nothing but aluminum, and it does the exact same thing. So it's like, what are you comparing this against? It's like sitting there and saying with like a 2009 Chevy Silverado versus a modern Ford Raptor. Oh, it uses a gas engine, which is terrible. Versus my Silverado, it uses a gas engine too. What are you talking about? You're crazy. But anyways, I would say this thing will be a game changer. Not really because of, I guess you could say, its ability to be a great armored personnel carrier, which it can. It's more so the TOW-2Bs that it's able to carry, along with the 25mm Bushmaster. The infantry that it will support, because it will be an infantry support vehicle, will have a massive added layer of protection. They'll have infantry support in the form of the 25mm, which a BMP-2 can largely provide. But not only that, it has the greatly, I guess you could say, capable TOW-2Bs that will also be mounted onto this Bradley, which means that the infantry, of course, needs to worry about anti-tank weaponry, but they don't really need to worry about it as much because the Bradley has it built in, and it's as capable or as destructive as a Javelin would be, considering that it explodes from the top down. So I would say the Bradley will certainly be a game changer, especially as in the abilities of Ukrainian infantry to push forward in an offensive, as compared to, say, them using a BMP-1, an MTLB, or an M113. It will be definitely adding to their abilities. This thing, however, they're not going to be sending it up to the front lines to face down a Russian tank head-on. That would be suicidal. The thing has no armor relative to a tank, and it will get destroyed just as easily. But as long as it's used properly and in an infantry support role, I think this thing is certainly going to be changing the way the war looks as far as an offensive goes for Ukraine. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, and we are on to the next one.
All right, and up next, we have a $50 super chat from none other than Beef Taco. And thank you so much, Beef Taco. That is very generous of you, and we do appreciate the support. And he says, day 448, who'da thunk? Keep it up. And this donation is for a nice Cracker Barrel breakfast I did myself 2 weeks ago in Kingsland, Georgia, and grit.
And I thank you so much, Beef Taco, for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And I would have to be honest with you, I love myself some Southern breakfast. I'm telling you, you can't top it. The pancake, the bacon, the grits, sausage and gravy, biscuits and gravy, chicken and dumplings. That's more of a supper thing. Honestly, that might be a breakfast thing, really. It's America. It's a breakfast thing. Like everything. It's great. It's amazing. And I got to thank you so much for supporting this channel on day 448 of the war, and encouraging us to keep it up, and your support will help us to be able to keep this thing up, and we will be making sure to enjoy ourselves a delicious Cracker Barrel breakfast. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address that fairly well, and thank you once again for helping this thing to keep on running. Capiche? And so with that, we're on to the next one. You know something I just remember, Matthew, when I said capiche? That brought me into a story. Gather around, everyone. I got a story to tell you of my personal life. Way back in the day, back when I was in 7th grade, I went with the band because I was in the middle school band, and I went to the elementary school to help out with the snow cone stand on field day. Of course, as many of y'all know, I'm not good with math, and dealing with change was certainly something that was a great challenge to me. And so a woman came up with her child, and remember, I'm in 7th grade, so I'm like, 13 years old? And so I didn't really know how to count out the change. So I counted it out wrong, and this woman went off on me. I'm 13 years old. And I was like, oh, I'm sorry. Like, she said the change was wrong. She said, listen, here's how you do it. And she went through the math, and she said, all right, so I'm owed 30 cents, capiche? And I was like, what the hell? I didn't know how to react to that because I was 13 years old. But honestly, what in the world was up with giving like a 13-year-old kid smoke? I mean, like, hell, he hasn't even gotten done with multiplication yet, and you're acting like he should be able to like put out change like he's a McDonald's fast food worker. We didn't even have a calculator there, so I had to do it on the spot. Like the registers at a store, they actually tell you how much you're supposed to give them back. Anyways, I went down that rabbit hole because I said capiche, and that sent me through a flashback. And if I knew where that woman was, I'd tell her she was a jerk, because that was a really jerk move to do to a 13-year-old kid that was selling snow cones at a field day at elementary school. But with that, we're on to the next one.
All right. And up next, we have a $5 super chat from Luis Vesquez once again. And thank you, Luis, for the support.
Hey!
He says, have you seen the airplane boneyard in Tucson, Arizona? And I grew up there.
I have seen the airplane boneyard in Tucson, Arizona. Let me go down here and find it real quick. Here's the Pima Air and Space Museum. So it's right over here. And look at that. So many planes. So many Orions. There's some B-52s. There's some C-5 Galaxies. A B-1 Lancer even. Even some smaller planes. I don't even know what some of these are. That's an F-5. More Orions. So many planes. So many kinds. Look. An F-4. An F-111. An A-6. An F-15, an A-4, 2 F-14s, a B-57 Canberra.
Oh, A-10.
Oh, A-10, F-18, an F-101.
You know, if Ukraine is looking at the satellite footage, they're going, "Oh, they tell us they don't have any planes to give. What is this? What is all of this?
What is this, huh? This is bull, I'll tell you. This is bull crap, man. But we have plenty of planes. It's just that we have a belly full. It's an aircraft shaped belly. We don't like to give them out much. And also some of these are not in a great shape anymore. But moving on from that, I have seen this thing before, and it is really cool. Also, the Pima Air and Space Museum, which is located just nearby, saves some of these aircraft from an otherwise unfortunate fate. Although they kind of just rot in the like humid air. But I'll show you all this museum, just in case y'all ever passing through the area. This is where you can see some of the best stuff that was brought out of the, I guess you could say, boneyard over there. You have this little, it looks like an Electra. You have this A-10 here. Oh, look at that. You have this F-14 right here. Oh. You have this Liberator, B-24 Liberator. Actually, that looks like a PBY like 4-2 or something like that. You even have the Guppy. More like the Super Guppy.
They call us a Guppy. That's like calling Mr. Lunchtime Smalls.
You have the F-111. You have an F-4E, I believe. You also have this thing. According to all known laws of aviation, a bee should not be able to fly. You also have a Huey. Let's see, what else?
That's sick.
A B-17. Remember, the B-17 is the exact same length as a MiG-31. Keep that in mind. A Super Constellation outside. I really like those. An older Blue Angels F-18 that was saved from the scrapyard, but appears to be rotting here in the hot sun. A Sea Stallion, one of the larger helicopters the Navy operates. A B-29 Super Fortress. We even have Air Force One, the Boeing 707 version. I don't know if that's the one that they swore in Lyndon B. Johnson on after Kennedy got his brains blown out in Dallas. I don't know, but that's one of them. Oh, come on. And then we can see some YF-23s. We can also see a Sky Crane. We can also see this kid posing for the camera. We can even see the rear section of an F-14. We can see a C-47 Dakota, or otherwise a DC-3. We can once again see the Super Beluga. Let's see, we can see a fit check happening right here. We can see a Lynx, actually. That's really interesting. Let's see, what else? Oh, what's this? I wouldn't even know. I don't know what that one is. F-105, F-101 Voodoo. We have a Super Constellation again. We have a Kiowa, a scout helicopter, kind of. Let's see, what else? What else do we have here at Pima? Oh, look, we got a, I forgot what this thing is. It's kind of like a Chinook, but I forgot. It's like a, I don't know. I feel like it's a CH.
Looking right at you.
It's looking right at me. But let's see, it's CH-53. Nope, that's the Stallion. I don't know what that one is, actually. Let's see if we, CH-46E. So it's like right before the Chinook. Let's see here. What else do we have? We have some planes outside. We have a A4 Skyhawk. This one appears to be some kind of an experimental Skyhawk. Interesting. We have a Cobra. I'm a big fan of Cobras, personally. I like them. Not the snake, but the helicopter. We also have, let's see what else. We have another DC-3. We have a C-5 Galaxy. It doesn't really look like it's a Galaxy anymore, but it was one at some time. And a whole bunch of other cool stuff. It's a great place. Great place. Wait a minute, what is this? Oh, I thought that was like a Junkers Ju-52. Ooh, what? Ah, that's cool. That's cool. It's like a Seafarer or something like that. It's from the Royal Air Force or the Royal Navy, I think. Those things are really neat. I don't even know how they got one of those because this is an American boneyard. But still, really neat little collection. Really neat place. And I hope that does address that fairly well. And thank you so much once again for the support, Luis Vasquez, and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we're on to the next one.
All right, and the next one goes to Bipedal Species, who says, how much money do the missile makers have in the bank?
Good question. I would have honestly no idea. That's a good question. I don't know how much they're making off those missiles. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, or at least declare my ignorance on that answer. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a question from, I'm not sure if it's Angela or Angela, but Angela Lemaire, who says, question, since Finland is a part of NATO, what is NATO going to do when Russia is doing Finland?
They'll do them. And so with that,
I'm not sure what that means.
And so with that, I hope that answers that fairly well, and we're on to the next one.
And the next one goes to David Myers, who says, should the EU and US take measures against India for refusing to stop accepting Russian oil and gas at a discount?
I would say probably. I would say maybe they should. But then again, that pushes the Indians away from us and more towards the Russians. You have to remember they're kind of a part of a larger picture in trying to thwart China's Belt and Road program. So we may not want to be that harsh with them. We may want to let that slide for strategic reasons. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a question from Guy L., who says, I wonder the actual budget the Kinsel Missile Project cost compared to how much the government bill was paid. So it is another case of extreme corruption, question mark.
Yes, I would say it's an extreme case of corruption, considering it heavily underperforms, and that was certainly not what they were going for. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. And we are on to the second and last question of the night.
This one goes to Trister1, who says, seen any estimates lately on remaining Russian missile stock?
I have, and they say that there's almost like a little over 100 or less than 100 of every single missile in their inventory left. And they started off with nearly 1,000 in each category, so they've almost run out of missiles. And that's why we're seeing that the missile attacks are starting to rely more on Kinsels and Shaheds to fill in those gaps where they really can't use as many missiles as they used to. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. And we are on to the final question of the night. And so, who is the lucky last person who asked the lucky last question of the night?
And that viewer is Packetang, who says, the CIA just launched a video to recruit spies from inside of Russia. Is this to capitalize on concerns regarding another mobilization or to help incite rebellion in Russia?
Probably to incite rebellion or some kind of unrest, or maybe even allow them to gather additional information about the Russians that they may not be able to on their own. It probably has multiple reasons to it, but I would say it's most likely to cause some kind of dissent in Russia and also focus a lot of the Russian government's manpower and efforts domestically to try and root out these people. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, and we have reached the end of tonight's stream. I thank you all so much once again for watching tonight. I thank you all so much for sticking with us through the second part, and if y'all did enjoy, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. It means a lot to us, and it makes us very happy to know that folks do enjoy this channel enough to subscribe. And of course, we will see you all tomorrow at 10 p.m. Eastern Time to cover the next 24 hours of the war. With that, good night, good luck, stay safe, take care, and of course, Slava Ukraini, and long live the Lee Spring Army.
And good night, Slava Ukraine, and see you tomorrow.
Yes. The Lee Spring Army sends its regards.
Русский военный корабль. Предлагаю сложить оружие и сдаться. Русский военный корабль, иди нахуй.